Hello, Dahi here from TimeStep Softworks. Welcome to the 20-second development video for Vigilantes, which will cover which will cover the work which has been carried out to date in Alpha 9. This is the second interim video on Alpha 9, and Alpha 9 should be available in around a week. One of the first things I'd like to show you is the addition of more control in the camera. So you can now rotate the camera by 45 degrees if you like. There's a request from a user on NDDB, and you can get this option by going into game options and changing the camera rotation, so you can switch between 90 and 45 degrees. You'll also notice that rather than two buttons here, a loot and a leave button, there's now a loot and leave button. This was also a suggestion I've received. And effectively, it's a good suggestion because there is a risk of pressing the wrong button and leaving the area before picking up your loot. So I'm just going to click on that now, and this will bring me to the biggest single change in this part of Alpha 9's development. And this is a post-mission looting screen. So I decided, rather than running around the level looking for loot, to work in the additional loot this way. The reason that I kind of figured for a start that it's better for the pacing. It's going to be faster to do it this way rather than to run around and click on boxes and things like that. And it also is probably a little less tedious because in the final game the levels will be served up randomly. So there is a possibility, well, it's actually pretty much definite that you will visit the same sort of combat area multiple times over the course of the game, though there may be different sort of dialogue encounters on different visits. Now, to explain a little more about how this works, it basically allows you to find additional items using surveillance and bypass. Surveillance to locate the containers, and then bypass to get access to them. Some of these items will be purely additional items, as in they were not in the level, you could not get them any other way, whereas 1 to 2 of these loot containers will actually contain items which have been dropped by the enemies and which you haven't been able to find in an initial glance. So when you press loot and leave, that will pick up any items that you have seen in a sort of precursory glance. In this screen you will have the option to find the remaining items. So to begin, what we do, we're going to basically do a check against the highest party surveillance skill against these 3 loot containers to see if we can find them, and I'll just go ahead and do that. So we have now found 2 out of the 3, and I'm aware this is a suspicious vehicle and it looks suspiciously like a storm drain. This is, we're currently working on the artwork, so this is just a placeholder. So in Alpha 9 this will be a suspicious vehicle. We can see here that the difficulty of this container is easy, and we have a 53% chance of unlocking it, and we have 1 attempt. It's worth noting that this is a provisional layout, so it may well change. As time goes by, we'll figure out a better way to lay it out. Now, the surveillance part's over, so now we have to try and use bypass. This is the highest party bypass skill to get access to these items. So we click on bypass, and we were successful on that occasion, and we got a claw hammer as a result. Now this other container is easy, that's a little harder than trivial, and we have a 53% chance of unlocking this, so I'm going to attempt that now, and that's successful too, and we found a second claw hammer there. And from here, that's more or less all we can do. We've found the items and we've found the loot containers, we've opened them, and now it's time to return to the main menu. One other thing which I've been working on is a user on NDDB got in touch and told me that they're having trouble seeing some of the text in the game. So I've worked through the tooltips, generally making them bigger, making the text bigger, in an attempt to improve the visibility. I really don't like the idea of if someone doesn't have very good eyesight that they can't play the game, or they can't really play the game properly. I don't really have very good eyesight myself, so I'm going to make this is the first sort of attempt to improve the visibility for people that may have issues with their vision. So effectively I've made the font size larger and the tooltips larger, And hopefully this, I've apparently also red is very hard to see against a dark background, so I fixed this also. You can also go into the options, game options, and set the font size to large. Now this will just be for the dialogue, so it'll make the dialogue, which is the vast body of the text in game, larger. Now if this proves to be if this doesn't really solve the problem, if it doesn't improve the situation for people with issues with their vision, we'll look at adding in a completely different set of tooltips. The reason I've been inclined to do this rather than making the other tooltips much bigger is I think if you start to make tooltips that are very big, they don't look very good. They start to take up vast parts of the screen. So in the case that this solution doesn't work, the kind of work that I have done to increase the size, I will look at adding in a separate set of tooltips which are much bigger and have much bigger text. The last thing I'd like to cover, I've added in some tips so you can, if you perhaps haven't checked out the tutorials, or there's some information that may be missing, you can get them when you load a level. So I'll just load up a level, and you can see that a tooltip pops up there for the duration of the loading. You'll also see that the illustration is now based on the gang that you're fighting against, so it'll load the correct illustration now depending on who you're fighting. That's pretty much it for this development video. As I said, Alpha 9 should be available in around a week. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again